In the previous lesson, I showed you how to use the Line tool to create horizontal and vertical lines. In this lesson, we will draw lines at certain angles. In the open file, you can see a closed profile that I have drawn using the Line tool by defining both the direction and the distance. Now I will recreate this profile on the right. First and foremost, I will activate the Line tool by clicking on the line icon. For the new line to be level with the existing one, I will hover the cursor at the ending point of the horizontal line on the left for a few moments, and then without clicking, I will move the cursor to the right. Notice that a red dotted line appears. As long as this line appears, it means that the starting point of the new shape will indeed be level with the ending point of the existing line. So, I will move the cursor to the right and click to define the first point. Since I want to create a straight line 25 meters long, I will move the cursor horizontally to define the direction, then I will type 25 to define the exact length, and finally, I will press enter. Now I will create a vertical line 20 meters long. I will move the cursor upward, then I will type 20, and finally, I will press enter again. Now I want to draw a line 14 meters long, but this time I want this line to be at an angle of 45 degrees with the vertical one I just created. To draw at a specific angle, I must first create an auxiliary line at a 45-degree angle. To achieve this, I will use the protractor tool. You can activate this tool either from the Tools menu by clicking on the protractor option or from the toolbar on the left by clicking on the protractor icon. I will click on the protractor icon. Notice that a protractor appeared in the drawing area. First, I need to place its center. In this case, I will place its center on the endpoint of the vertical line. The next step is to align the protractor horizontally, so I will move the cursor horizontally and click. Notice that the value in the angle field in the right lower corner changes as I move the cursor. At this point, I should mention that this angle is measured from the alignment line I defined, not the vertical line. The final step is to set the angle for the auxiliary line, so I will type 45 and press enter. Notice that a dashed line is created at a 45-degree angle. Now, I can activate the Line tool from the toolbar again. I will set the first point of the new line on the end point of the vertical line, and I will move the cursor along the dashed line. Then, I will type 14 and press enter. Next, I will create a horizontal line 2 meters long. The next line should be parallel to the one I created at 45 degrees. To ensure that they will be parallel, I will hover the cursor over the line I want to be parallel to, and once the line's color becomes magenta, I will type 9 and press enter. Next, I will move the cursor vertically, type 15, and press enter. To create the next line, I do not need to enter a value. I can just hover the cursor over the starting point of the first line and click once when the auxiliary lines appear. Finally, I will click on the starting point to create a closed profile. As you may have understood by now, in order to draw with precision, apart from specifying the length of each line, you may need to use the protractor tool to specify the angles as well as the auxiliary lines that appear by default while you are drawing.